Just a little bit of a warning that a few months ago at the high holidays, I mentioned that I believe that the Torah and thus Judaism is political inherently, and so we're going to talk a little bit of politics, but don't worry, it's not American politics. After I graduated college in 2012, I lived in Israel for a 2-year period that was instrumental to the development of the halachic egalitarian movement in Jerusalem. Throughout these 2 years, I participated in study and prayer groups that embraced Jewish law and saw people of all gender identities as equally bound by that law. While it might not seem so revolutionary to a room of people of all genders where we embrace traditional prayer together, we read Torah together, we lead services together, during the first 2 years that I spent in Israel, such Jewish expression was seen as either radical or just plain odd. While the vast majority of synagogues in the city relegated the voices of worship to men, I read Torah, I led services, both in rooms with men and women sitting together, and in rooms in which the mechitza, the dividing wall between the genders, was translucent enough for couples to motion to one another that it was the other one's turn to take the kids. During that time, the Israeli friends that I made at the animal shelter could not believe that the minyanim and the study groups that I spoke about actually existed. For them, there were either reformim, Reformed Jews who identified as religious but didn't see themselves as bound by halakha, datim and haredim, Orthodox Jews who experienced their halachic Judaism as separated by gender, or chilonim, strictly secular Jews who may occasionally wander into an Orthodox prayer space. A Jewish prayer space that takes halakha seriously and acknowledges the equal opportunity of men and women in that prayer space was unheard of. During my time in Israel, I became friends with Israeli rabbis, both male and female, who knew that the marriages and the conversions they officiated would not be recognized by the state of Israel simply because they were involved in these egalitarian minyanim and study groups. While I began my time in Israel without a clear sense of where I fit Jewishly, I was soon inspired by the balance of adherence to halakha and insistence on egalitarianism. Those egalitarian halachic spaces were a large part of why I decided that my rabbinic place and personal practice must be within the conservative movement. Now, more than a decade later, I feel indebted to that Israeli movement that so inspired me to be the Jew that I am today. I've also learned how much that movement for halachic egalitarianism was not just influenced by small learning and prayer groups, but also by the larger institution of Masorti OLAMI, the conservative movement's international umbrella organization. Through Masorti OLAMI, over 80 Israeli congregations and hundreds of others throughout the world thrive on the balance of tradition and change. The Masorti youth group, Noam, educates hundreds of children on the importance of Jewish pluralism in the state of Israel, and the Schechter Institute ordains rabbis who are sensitive to and passionate about the balance between Jewish tradition and Israeli modernity. Every 5 years, we here in the United States have the ability to join that cause for Jewish pluralism in the land of Israel. So from now through May 4th, we each have the opportunity to cast a vote for the delegates that the United States will send to the 39th World Zionist Congress in Jerusalem that will take place in October. When we vote in the World Zionist Congress election, we affect the policy and the funding decisions to be made at this year's World Zionist Congress, the 39th since Theodore Herzl began the tradition in 1897. This Congress makes decisions affecting the World Zionist Organization, the Jewish Agency for Israel, the Jewish National Fund, and Keren HaYesod, which collectively organize $1 billion in funding for Jewish organizations in Israel and around the world. In a time in which we can often feel like we as American Jews have no effect on Israeli religious practice or policy, this election flies right in the face of that doubt. As Congregation Beth Torah is a conservative synagogue under the USCJ, our community most directly benefits from votes towards Mercaz USA, the voice of conservative and Masorti Judaism. It's important to share with full transparency that a vote for Mercaz USA is a vote to recognize our synagogues, our religious schools, summer camps, and youth groups as worthy of significant funding. As Rabbi David Stern said so eloquently last week about this year's reform platform, if some of it sounds like a partisan scrambling for our piece of the pie, well, some of it is. But, he added, this is not just some intra-Jewish color war where we want to make sure our team wins. Our vote has a direct effect, not just on our American conservative Jewish experience, but on how our Judaism and our Zionism are expressed and acted upon across the world. As the face of a movement that repeats again and again, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Bazeh, that all of Israel, all of the Jewish people is intertwined with and responsible for one another, Mercaz's platform begins with funding towards, quote, rebuilding Israel in the aftermath of October 7th and supporting our hostages. We as a Jewish people are nothing without the well-being of our entire Jewish family, whether here in the US or thousands of miles away. Now more than ever, as many of our personal family and friends are deeply enmeshed in the Israeli aftermath of October 7th, we have a particularly deep sense of how our Jewish experiences intertwine with one another. In the same vein, Mercaz highlights efforts towards combating anti-Semitism wherever it occurs. For the remainder of its platform, Mercaz calls for, quote, an equitable and inclusive democracy in Israel, educating on Zionism and addressing misinformation, preserving a pluralistic Jewish society, strengthening the bond between American Jews and Israel, funding resources and support for conservative and Masorti movements' values, and achieving peace and stability in the region. While many of Mercaz's platforms are echoed by other slates in the election, the conservative and Masorti movement have the unique status of providing the link between traditional Jewish practice and modern egalitarianism. The Masorti leaders behind Mercaz are uniquely at the forefront of such issues as fighting against restrictions against the law of return. At this particular moment in time, those Jews who have gone through the conversion process with a reform or conservative rabbi, along with their Jewish children, are eligible to apply for Aliyah. In fact, these Jews regularly make Aliyah with approval from the Israeli government. However, as Haredi, as ultra-Orthodox influence in the Israeli government and in funding organizations like the World Zionist Congress increases, that privilege may soon be revoked. Similarly, Mercaz is working to actualize the 2016 Kotel Agreement, approved by an advisory committee that was appointed by the Prime Minister. While the agreement officially provided for the funding and the protection of an egalitarian worship area of the Kotel, Netanyahu put a stay on the agreement soon after it was made and has not re-implemented it since. While egalitarian Jews, often organized by groups that are a part of Masorti OLAMI, often use this space, it is not officially designated for egalitarian prayer or protected from those who may violently oppose such prayer. When we vote for Mercaz, we support the Talmudic notion of Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim, that these and those are the words of the living God. We support funding that goes towards the recognition of a diversity of Jewish practice and belief. As conservative Jews, we know that such a diversity of Jewish practice helps us bring Judaism forward l'dor vador from generation to generation for the diversity of needs and experiences of Jews throughout our world. While I have already cast my vote for Mercaz, you have the opportunity to go to zionistelection.org to read over the platforms of various slates and decide which one best fits your vision for the future of Israel and the Jewish people. Mercaz is certainly not the only slate that supports Jewish diversity, Zionism, and the pursuit of peace and security in the land of Israel. Some of the differences between each seemingly similar platform lie in the specific vision for the future of the war in Gaza, the definition of Jewish pluralism, and the emphasis or lack thereof of the well-being of Israel's non-Jewish citizens and neighbors. The U.S. election for the World Zionist Congress is open to all American Jewish citizens and permanent residents who both identify as Zionist and have not voted in any recent Knesset elections. For more information on Mercaz USA and on the World Zionist Congress in general, we have plenty of bookmarks and information sheets that are currently on the shelf of pamphlets near the lobby, but I'll take some and I'll put some by the Loop listeners as well before the service is over. Even from thousands of miles away, your voice can and should affect how life operates in Israel, how the world sees Israel and the Jewish people, and of course, how your descendants will continue to experience their Judaism and their love for Israel for generations to come. The Israeli Declaration of Independence decrees that the state of Israel will promote the development of the country for the benefit of all of its inhabitants, will be based on precepts of liberty, justice, and peace taught by the Hebrew prophets, will uphold the full social and political equality of all its citizens without distinction of race, creed, or sex, will guarantee full freedom of conscience, worship, education, and culture, will safeguard the sanctity and inviolability of shrines and holy places of all religions. With your vote in the election of the 39th World Zionist Congress, you can ensure that the freedom, equality, and sanctity clearly set forth by Israel's founders can stay as concrete aspects of our Jewish democratic state. Shabbat Shalom.